Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and to the witnesses. And look, I should start from the outset by saying we have a very clear remit at the Public Accounts Committee to get to the bottom of what's happening, and certainly your presence here today is very welcome. You've provided additional information, and I thank you for that. I also want to note, Mr. Tubridy, that in your opening statement you say you have great credibility, or you have great respect for the institutions of this House, and I think that statement has great credibility. I've listened to you for a long time, and I appreciate those comments.
It's important.
The difficulty that we have is that for whatever reason something happened here, and essentially RTE reduced its income by €75,000, and in turn €75,000 was paid to Total Productions. It was paid to Total Productions, albeit for additional duties on your behalf. So who knew what and when is really important, because that is essentially what happened. €75,000 of a credit note was given to Renault. In return, €75,000 was given to your production company, and you did additional duties. So it's really important that we know who and what, and that is why some of the information you've given us is really crucial. You've said very clearly that one of the truths you wish to lift is that you're an independent contractor, and I accept that. But would you accept that this arrangement with RTE is not like work you've gathered from other companies like the BBC and so on? In essence, RTE facilitated it, it introduced it to their clients, they were party to the agreement. The events followed the late format, which is mentioned in the agreement. RTE paid for the staging and the catering and so on. So it's not fair to compare this contract with other contracts that you gain entirely separately. Would you accept that?
Yeah, that's a fair observation.
Yeah, okay. And so the suggestion is that RTE created this arrangement in order to bolster your income. Do you accept that?
I understand why you'd say that, but I can't accept it as a matter of fact, because I think it is it fair to say that we would, as an independent contractor, you do different jobs for different companies.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, I've written a couple of books with, albeit, a couple of kids' books, I don't know, and I would have done, as Noel has said, work in the BBC before. That's independent contractor. They're completely
But RTE wouldn't have paid for the catering at the launch of those events. They wouldn't have provided staff. They wouldn't have had any
I understand the nuance of your point.
Yeah. So I think it's a fair point you make about being an independent contractor, but it's not necessarily a relevant point to this, because this was an arrangement created by RTE at their behest, according to your evidence, that created by RTE.
Yes.
And the net effect of that was the taxpayer lost €75,000 and you gained it.
Yeah, well, again, this is...
Can I address the statement?
Whether you knew that was happening or not is a different question.
No, I appreciate
but that is what's happened.
If I can address the first question in relation to the staging. As a sponsor-related showrunner, we're perhaps the most important sponsor in all sponsors. And the fee paid by the sponsor-related show would dwarf any other sponsorship that they'd had. RTE was focused on keeping Renault happy, maximising the potential of their investment and the Late Late Show. I think Geraldine O'Leary said when she was here the other week that, and certainly during COVID, they had tickets for the audience, they had no tickets for the audience, there's a green room, there's no green room, so they were trying
Kelly,
to
you're way off point. The point is very simple. The point is very simple. I put it, Mr. Tubridy, I'll put it to you. Do you appreciate that that RTE lost €75,000 worth of income as a fact, and that Mr. Tubridy's production company gained €75,000 as a result of this tripartite?
Well, no, I completely disagree with that. So
no, you can't disagree with that, because that's what actually happened.
I know, but if I can, just from our side, please explain. The first 75 was paid by Renault. The figure of 225, 75 was paid by Renault, not RTE, for delivery of 3 Renault road shows, had nothing to do with Ryan's broadcasting contract, and the amount claimed was their payment because they'd issued a credit note. We'd no idea about the Michelin credit notes.
Mr. Kenny, I'm not asking you how it arose. Mr. Kenny, just for a moment.
Sure.
I appreciate you referring to yours. I'm not asking you how it arose. I'm asking you, do you accept that RTE reduced its income from Renault by €75,000 and that Mr. Tubridy gained €75,000 additional income for additional work?
Sure. I think with RTE and Renault, that's completely between RTE and Renault.
Of course, but my point is, do you accept that that's what happened?
Our understanding of what they do, as you can see,
so I'm taking that you accept that that's the fact of the situation.
So we've no idea what Renault do. In relation to Ryan's contract, it was completely
But Mr. Kelly, the crux of the problem is that is what actually happened, and we need to find out who knew that, because it looks like there's an attempt to deceive.
Okay, well then, if that's the question, we were deceived as well. We were
Okay.
deceived as well.
Okay,
We
so
had no
are
idea.
you both saying that, and it's entirely likely that you don't know, are you both saying you were not aware that the title sponsor, the Late Late Show, was reducing its sponsorship by €75,000?
No.
So that never came up, that's not part of it. Because the
Absolutely.
cost neutral nature of the agreement is really important,
Sure.
because that's what really brings it down to the core, that money was taken off the books. And both of you are saying you had no idea that in Miss O'Leary's evidence, she said she raised the credit note of €75,000 and she did that on the instruction of Miss Forbes, and you have no idea
idea.
or arrangement.
No
And
idea
it
of
never
that.
formed part of any of the contract
No,
negotiations and so on. That's great. Okay, look, that's important to get on the table, okay? Mr. Tubridy, the difficulty with that is that I suppose a lot of your colleagues would have taken reductions, and they would perceive that this additional arrangement, arranged by RTE, was not in the spirit of what was happening at the time. I suppose you want at some point to go back into RTE, to go into the canteen, to be able to look in the eye of the person serving you a cup of coffee, to talk down the mic of somebody there's a sound engineer at the other end of it, to look through the lens of a camera. You have to be able to look those people in the eye.
You're describing my friends.
Yeah, but the facts of the situation were that you received additional money and they did not.
Yes. And back to my opening statement, that cuts were made down through the years. I think.
Other reductions.
40% since
when?
2012.
Since 2012,
40%, which excludes the 120.
the final figure is 40% pay cut.
40% pay cut.
I really
I
tried not to shirk my responsibility
And
in
you
that
certainly
regard.
fully accept that, but the facts are before us, and that I think that is your difficulty.
This
Mr.
is
Tubridy.
why
It's
we're here
everyone's
today.
difficulty.
I appreciate
exactly. Mr. Kelly, I want to turn to the invoice that was raised. So there's an email on your PAC page 25, which appears to be from somebody in RTE, which says, "Do not put any person's name on the invoice. If he sends it back to me, then I will sort everything out." Who is that email from?
From Geraldine.
It's
Sorry. It's from somebody who worked for Geraldine.
So it's from an RTE staff member.
Yes.
Can you provide us with the name of that person?
Sorry, we were instructed.
I'm happy if you want to reflect on it.
GDPR, and so
GDPR issue.
yeah.
Okay. It looks very clear to me, as somebody responsible for public money, that when someone says in an email, "Do not put any person's name or invoice on the invoice," it's important for me to know who that was. I'd ask you to reflect on that, and if you can provide us the name, I will be asking RT the same question. The second question then is, on the 7th of May, there was a meeting, a Teams meeting, and there was 4 people at that meeting. Can you tell us who the 4 people were at that meeting?
So that would have been Trish Whelan, one of the RT solicitors, D. Forbes, myself, and a colleague of mine, Neve.
A colleague of yours.
Yes.
So the 4th person that we haven't been able to identify so far was a colleague of your own.
Yes.
Again, useful information. Okay. So I then turn to the issue of the invoices. And I have to question Mr. Kelly, you on this point, because this is the invoice for the first €75,000. And these are the invoices from the other two €75,000.
Yes.
One by Noel Kelly, the other 2 by CMS.
Yes.
One with the full description, the other 2 without the full description.
Yeah.
All relating to the same 75,000, all relating to the arrangement with Renault. You're the only one that raised these 2 invoices. It really strikes at the credibility of what you're saying, is that you treated this separately from this. Even after RTE's instruction, you treated them separately. Would that be fair?
Again, we were under instruction, as you can see. Description from RTE, refer back to the letter.
But the invoices
from
were
RTE.
raised with you. You have a fiduciary responsibility as the director of your company. You raised 2 for the same 3 payments. You raised them under different companies,
Yeah.
and you raised them for different reasons, and to invoice them to different people.
Yeah, and they were sent under instruction to RTE, and we presume that Renault were going to be paying this.
Okay. Last point. You're very clear, and you say that you should stress that NK management had no idea who Astis were. They had no reason to think that Astis was linked to RTE, and no reason to believe that it was being made on behalf of RTE. Would you be surprised that your name is also mentioned elsewhere in the Astis account?
This was this the rent
The barter account.
yeah sorry.
So on the 30th of the 11th to 2018, there's a reference to €2,394 raised in relation to a charity lunch by Noel Kelly in aid of Chernobyl.
Right. That's an RTE issue.
No, but my understanding is that obviously a fundraising lunch, and I'm not reflecting on the charity in any way.
Sure.
But it does strike to the heart of your suggestion that you didn't know what Astus was when there was a previous arrangement involving a charity lunch, albeit where the Astus account was invoiced.
Again, Deputy, like...
Well, perhaps you might help us. If you could tell us how that invoice was invoiced in the past and it had no connection with Astus, your story stacks up. If there's a previous invoice, if you told somebody to invoice Astus for the lunch, the charity lunch that you held, then the story doesn't. And I'm not. I don't have the facts before me. I'm just asking you the question.
And just clarify that, please.
Sorry?
Just clarify that point for him.
Yeah.
Please, briefly.
The lunch in question, RT wanted to take a table, so they, the people that were organised, they asked them to invoice that.
So
again,
RTE told the charity to invoice Astus. You didn't know Astus was invoiced.
No.
Okay.
No.
Alan Kelly.
No.
Thank you, Chair.